Hello and welcome to the Beyond Resistance Pod, where we share hard-won insights to build blue power and red communities and start winning. I'm Sarah Schultz.
And I'm Jennifer Austin.
And Jennifer, what's got you fired up today?
Okay, two things. First, I know that this is going to air probably Thursday the 9, 10, 11, 12th. So it's going to be several days after the Super Bowl. I get it, people, but we already recorded the intro for tomorrow's episode, so whatever. First of all, Seahawks won. Yay. Not that I care that much about the Seahawks, but they don't support Trump, so that's cool. And they have a woman that is their owner. So it's like the first time a female owner got to lift
Oh, I didn't know that.
the Lombardi Trophy. Now, I had hoped that it would be Sheila Ford Hamp, who is the owner of the Lions, but of course that did not happen. But, I'm going to move past that. What I really want to talk about is, well, I didn't get to see Green Day, so I can't talk about them. I'm going to go find a recording because love Green Day. Didn't get to see what they did. But Bad Bunny's performance, I know it was like, people made it controversial. It was not controversial. He is a Grammy Award-winning, huge selling artist. Like probably the only person I can think of that is bigger than him is like Taylor Swift. And they didn't get Taylor Swift, so they got Bad Bunny. It was all about money. There was no politics involved. And if you actually watched the halftime show, it wasn't about politics either. It was about love and community and connection and like celebrating Puerto Rican heritage, which I, as a person who am not Puerto Rican and live in my little white rural area, I loved it. I loved seeing a glimpse of a culture that I may never get to go visit or really know that much about. It was beautiful, and it was such a production. Like the days of standing on a stage and singing your songs and pyrotechnics going on behind you, they're gone. I'm sorry, but Bad Bunny got rid of it for you. Kendrick Lamar got rid of that for you. And I can't remember who was the headline artist. Maybe it was Dr. Dre. But the year that Eminem was also on, I don't think he was the headline. Or was he the headline? I can't remember. The year Eminem was on, it was a little bit more of like a set and a storytelling. And like that attracts my attention far more than somebody famous just on a stage singing and whatever. Like, oh, it was just amazing and beautiful and colorful, and I cannot get enough of it.
Yeah. So speaking of like the kind of pageantry of it, I have a friend who is like a cameraman. He's a person who, for news and other things, he's run camera, and you see him. His name is Tom. Hey Tom, if you're listening, you see him like out, at like a local football games, just running the camera, and he's just a super nice guy. I think he worked with
my sister.
Okay. Yep. Super
Mm-hmm.
awesome person. He's part of the communications union, and anyways, he was posting today just about like the camera work that has to be involved in something like that, where it's not just a concert, right? It's like not all cameras pointing in one direction at one like person that's performing or group that's performing. It's like cameras all over the place, and just choreographed and coordinated in such amazing ways. But I want to go back to your point about what's political and what's not, because I feel like that happens all the time, and that's worth getting fired up about too, because like in this day and age, things are political that should not be political. We should be able to say that the only thing stronger than hate is love. And every person should be able to be like, yeah, like right on, that's true. And somehow in this warped like existence that we have, we're find ourselves in, even a statement like that is political. A statement like the only thing stronger than hate is love is considered political when it's not. And we do that. I see that all the time. And it's just, we have to get back to like, having like politics be politics, but also having like just being humans be being humans, and not make everything into a political statement. I haven't seen the full Bad Bunny performance. I don't have a way to watch I didn't watch the Super Bowl. I don't have a way to watch the Super Bowl. We just like stream stuff, and we don't have, I think it was Peacock or something is how you could stream it yesterday. So, but I've seen enough clips of it and all the things to kind of get a gist of what it is. And the thing that is so interesting to me, I'm always thinking about hypocrisy, right? So like, so we have this Republican Party that like talks about like being about like small government, which is bullshit because they're like want to, dictate what happens to our own uterus, but they want to and they're also like pro business and like capitalism. And yet they're like anti this decision made by the NFL to like literally like pick and invite the most downloaded artist in the whole wide world to be their halftime show. It's not like the NFL suddenly went woke and made a decision based on that. They made a decision based on capitalism. And if you're the kind of Republican that you say you are, or most Republicans say they are, and are all about pro-business and pro-capitalism, then you'd be like, right on, NFL, that was the right decision. But of course, the hypocrisy gets in the way of that because the actual ideals that the Republican Party purports to be all about, it's not how they live out their lives anymore. And it's just one of a long list I'm keeping in my head of the like disconnect or the dissonance between like what they say they're about and then the way it shows up or doesn't in their lives.
Yeah. And that whole if nobody had said this is a political decision, and I will say it very well could be the bot farms. It very well could be the bot farms that created the Bad Bunny as a political decision. And it's not true. It was an economic decision. Roger Goodell is just as much of a Trump ass kisser as so many other rich white men in America. So he wasn't they weren't making this decision based on we're going to show our support for immigrants. No. First of all, he's not an immigrant. Benito is an American citizen as a Puerto Rican.
I can't believe we have to say that, but we do.
Surprised we have to say that. But anyway, so like just this whole idea that there was any political decision, it probably was just a bunch of bot farms somewhere, and then a bunch of MAGA people picked up on it. If nobody had said anything, they just would have, I'm sure there would have been people that were like, ooh, they're not going to sing in English. That's terrible. But I don't know. It was fine. It was such an overreaction.
I think decision. It was a capitalism centered decision. And how do you know? Because in the face of all of this resistance to that decision, all the way up and including the president, the NFL just said, meh, we're still doing this because it's going to make them a bunch of money because they have a strategic plan to be a more international company. And if you are the Republican of old, you would have said, right on, do the right business thing because that's what your party is supposed to be all about. But there's so much hypocrisy going on that's getting in the way of what that actually is. So anyways, I will watch it. I will watch the Bad Bunny thing. I did not miss out on the game at all.
The
but
game
I
was
will
fine.
watch
I
the
love
full
football,
thing.
and I was still like, meh. This isn't all that great. This is not very exciting. But the halftime was great. I will find a YouTube version, like a YouTube of it. Probably Green Day too. I bet you it's out there. So I will definitely watch that. I want to see it again because it was really beautiful. It was just so beautiful. The other thing I'm fired up about is all I want for Valentine's Day, not chocolate, not flowers. I want ice reform. And here's how I can get it. Now, some of the things they're talking about, and I don't have a list in front of me, so for those of you who are listening who know better than I do, I'm sorry, I'm not perfect. But they're definitely talking about making sure that there are body cams on all of the ICE agents, that they're turned on. It's wild that we have to specify this in the legislation. They're turned on and that the footage is backed up. Wonder why they'd want that. And some of the other things are they have to use warrants. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on. There was a bunch of different things that are just basic how law enforcement is supposed to behave. So really it's not reform so much as just follow the fucking rules that are already there. And I get that it's not enough. hardcore agree it's not enough, but we are not going to get more than that. And we'll be lucky if we get a couple of those right now under a Republican Congress and Senate, a Republican president that does not give a shit about any of these immigrants, and that believes that they're doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, although I do think that the political pressure of the majority of people in this country think the ICE is going too far, and I think that will help us. So what I need everybody to do is call your Congress people and your senators, even if they, especially if they're Republican, especially if they're Republican. If they're a Democrat, call them and tell them to stay firm and strong on this. And if they're a Republican, tell them they need to support these demands that the Democrats have. And hopefully they can get this done by Valentine's Day, and I will have my wish.
Well, and the demands, just to kind of connect the dots, right? Because the demands are coming as kind of requirements in the most recent budget process and those votes, right? Yeah.
Yes. So all the other budget stuff was passed. Yep. It's the DHS budget that is on hold right now. So if the government is in a partial shutdown because of this, because they can't come to an agreement, and they need Democrats, they have to have Democrats on this. That's going to affect some of the things like, if we have an emergency spending in our Coast Guard. And I'm trying to remember, I don't think is the TSA under there? I can't remember.
I don't know.
I'm not sure about that one. But yes, it's going to affect some of the things that we need to be concerned about. And it's not always great. We do not want government employees not getting paid. That sucks a lot. But we also need to start demanding that ICE behave like normal human beings and not animals.
Yeah. And we also know that that funding for ICE within the big ugly bill that, basically increased ICE funding by so much that, basically ICE, the budget for ICE is bigger than most whole militaries of other countries. And that funding is essentially locked in. So this is kind of like, so for those folks who are like thinking that this is a moment to abolish ICE, this is not a moment to abolish ICE, because
not possible.
Their funding is going to exist beyond this whole budget process right now, because it's part of the big, beautiful bill. But like the decisions are being made right now about the Department of Homeland Security, and it's been kind of decoupled from the rest of the budget process. And so right now, I've been doing a lot of research on the term pragmatic progressivism. And it's this idea of like, literally like, yes, you have progressive kind of ideals, but you're like pragmatic about like the reality that we exist in right now and how you can actually move the needle to get to those progressive ideals versus like burning it down and having nothing. So this is something that we can push for, these types of reforms right now. We don't want to hold up some kind of progress for an ideal, which is might be abolishment, which is not possible right now. So that's important to keep in mind.
Reforms is probably the best we can get right now. And there is no way that we are going to get any sort of abolishment movement until 2029. And even then, we have to have a Democratic president, a Democratic Senate, and a Democratic Congress, and the public behind it in like, what's that, 4 years or 3 years from now, the public behind it to make that happen. I think the best that we're ever going to get probably is serious reform to ICE in 2029. Personally, I have no problem with let's get rid of Department of Homeland Security. Let's get rid of ICE. Let's create something new. I'm not saying like get rid of it and there is nothing. Like we have to have something. I think it's pretty much rotten to the core and we need to replace it. But I don't hold out this purity idea that it has to be this idea that I hold as sacred and no other idea will work.
Nothing else will work. Yeah. I mean, let's just also remember that the Department of Homeland Security is a new department,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. Like it's in
Mm-hmm.
our memories. It's like
Like, oh, I was gonna say, like, I literally remember when it was
yeah,
created, and
yeah.
I know I just turned 50, but I'm not that old.
Right. I wasn't paying attention until I was in my 30s or whatever,
Yeah,
or
I was an
20s,
adult
early
when this
20s.
thing was
Yeah.
created.
Yeah, for sure. Well, those are all things worth being fired up about. And I'm just going to be fired up in a like positive way here in Midland after a concert that we had with a group called Sweet Honey in the Rock, which was here in Midland. And it was Sweet Honey in the Rock is a group of Black singers, vocalists, mostly a cappella. They've been around in various like iterations since the 1970s. And it was a beautiful concert, but the message that they came to with the concert was amazing. And it was really like powerful. And it was they brought in police violence and Black Lives Matter topics. They brought in ICE and immigration topics and environmentalism and all of the things, which I wasn't expecting
Mm-hmm.
at all at a music concert. And there was this beautiful moment where they had the whole audience, a couple hundred people, close their eyes, and we just sang over and over again this refrain of Hallelujah. And like there were tears in my eyes the whole time of
Oh,
just these people in Midland, my neighbors and friends, a couple hundred of us singing together in this way that in this moment in time that feels so fraught. And music and arts and all of that is really such a key element to getting through what we're going to get through. So that was a couple of days ago, and I'm still kind of buzzing on just how great that was. So I'm fired up about that.
that is really awesome. And I don't know, that does my heart good to just think about you and so many of our friends and neighbors at the Center for the Arts just
Yeah,
vibing together. I love
yeah,
it. I love it
it
so
was
much.
awesome. It was
And
awesome. And go ahead.
I want to say, and it just kind of reminds me, especially looking on social media today, there was a bunch of like, oh, why do they have to bring politics into this and that? And like, first of all, there was no politics in the Super Bowl, so just so we're clear. But
Yeah,
also, art is political.
yeah,
Sports are political.
yeah,
Everything's political. If if we don't express that, that also is a political choice. So I just could be
yeah.
totally done with the why do we have to hear things political? Like poetry and music
Hmm.
and plays and everything. Like that's how you grow and become a better person and learn is like experiencing these
Yeah.
beautiful moments.
And it always has been
Hmm.
throughout human history. It always
Yes.
has been. It always has been. So we'll leave you all with that as we go to our next amazing interview with one of our candidates for Secretary of State, which we've been so fortunate to speak with all of them ahead of the big convention in April, where Democrats will choose who we kind of put on the ballot for the general election. So hopefully you get a chance to listen to this great conversation and help that'll help you make up your mind as well.
Today on the pod, we have Suzanna Shkreli. Do you go by Susie or Suzanna?
I love how you're saying Suzanna, by the way. That's actually how my parents named me, but we've gone by Susie just my whole life. But I love that you're
Okay.
saying it. Sounds so exotic, Susanna.
Okay. I think it sounds, I love that. Susanna. It just sounds lovely. Suzanna was born and raised in the Metro Detroit area, which I kind of love. I'm not from there, but I have a ton of family there. She is a first-generation American of Albanian descent. She grew up working in her family's restaurant. And she ended up graduating with a BA of political science in just 3 years and went on to get her Juris Doctorate in law. She was a Macomb County assistant prosecutor for 8 years, also working in the Child Protection Unit. And she was in the Whitmer administration under several different auspices. She was a deputy legal counsel, a Michigan's child advocate, director of juvenile justice reform under the Department of Health and Human Services, and most recently, the commissioner commissioner of the Michigan State Lottery. Currently, she is a Democratic candidate for the Michigan Secretary of State. Welcome to the pod, Suzanna.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Is there anything that I did not list in that bio that you really want our listeners to know about you?
The one thing, although you're asking me later, is that I grew up playing competitive ice hockey, and I'm a huge Detroit sports fan. That's one fun fact.
That is a very important point.
But you knocked it out of the park.
I am more than happy to talk about that because I am also a huge Detroit sports fan.
Well, welcome to the pod. What an amazing bio. And I'm just noting that you've worked in government for more than a decade. So you know firsthand the ups and downs of elected officials. And thanks for running, I guess, because of and maybe in spite of all of that. I'm curious about what's motivating you to run for elected office now? And what can you do for Michigan as an elected official that you couldn't do as a government employee?
Well, just a funny joke. I like to make the joke that I was punching my state government bingo card because I've held so many different roles within the Whitmer administration. But she jokingly called me her wolf from Pulp Fiction once because I get stuff done. So
That's amazing.
But yeah, this time calls for someone with my background to stand up to protect our votes, our Constitution, and our voice. I have experience leading bigger offices, the Lottery Commission. As a Lottery Commissioner, I oversaw 8 regional offices across the state with over 200 employees and a pretty large budget. And that office is akin to how the Secretary of State's office works. Although there's many more branches and more employees, it is a public-facing office that requires great service. And that's what we're seeing with the current secretary and the appointments process. But I know that there's more to be done, from expanding walk-in hours to delivering on digital driver's license, and then also for advocating for the codification of a Michigan Voting Rights Act. And so those are some of the things I definitely want to push forward in that role. But I also value being a present and accessible leader. It's something that I've held deeply to me in all my appointed roles. I also think that when you are an elected official, you are collaborating in ways that you don't necessarily get to as an appointee. And then you also get to set policy, and that's something that's pretty exciting for me, and setting the culture of the entire Secretary of State's office. So I think with my state executive experience, as well as my experience in the law, I served as an assistant prosecutor for nearly a decade. Half of that time, I took on the worst kind of threats in the courtroom, and I'm ready to do that again because we can expect God knows what in 2026 and in 2028. And I think I'm the only litigator in this race. I'm the only person who's had to stand in the courtroom and had to strategize around what type of legal arguments we're going to be making. I've done that in my roles in state government as well, and that's what we're going to need with Trump and Vance and the continuing undermining of our elections. I also was in the governor's administration, deputy legal counsel, in charge of emergency management. We saw a whole bunch of emergencies, from COVID to a 500-year flooding incident to polar vortex to the meeting of the electors in 2020. And I worked hand in hand with the Secretary of State's office and the Michigan State Police because we didn't know what we were going to get that day. And because of our preparation, we were able to thwart those fake electors from coming into the Capitol. And we were able to deliver on the governor's constitutional obligation to deliver those electors to the National Archives to certify the election. And what is normally kind of a ceremonious act ended up being a target to undermine our elections. And that memory is seared in my mind, just how the presence of MSP and what we were anticipating potentially that day. And then we've continued to see those attacks on our elections since. And so someone like me with emergency management experience, state executive experience, knowing how resources work, understanding state emergency operations, as well as local emergency operations to make sure that we're getting our clerks ready through tabletop exercises to really be ready on day one for what's coming. I think I'm the right fit for it.
Okay. So that actually brought up a million questions, and I don't think I have time to ask them all, but I will add, what is a digital driver's license? That is one thing I do want to know about.
I was wondering about that too.
Yeah, so it's simply just adding your driver's license to your wallet, right? I mean, we can add
Okay.
our Lions tickets, our credit
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
cards,
nice.
Apple Pay. We should be able to have a digital driver's license because it makes government more accessible for people, especially if folks lose their license and they need to go somewhere and they need it for something. They're able to have it on their phone. So, that's in some of the conversations I have, right? You have a lot of the younger generation that really want to digitize everything. But on the flip side of things, that's why I want to expand walk-in hours as well, because not everybody is working with the same type of understanding of how to navigate systems. Like my grandma, for example, she can't make an appointment online and go herself, right? And so to me, growing up in the restaurant business, I believe in first come, first serve. I think it's the golden standard for customer service. And I think that we, in the days of mobile ordering and DoorDash, you should be able to get a walk-in guaranteed service at a government office.
I'm glad you asked that question, Jennifer. I didn't know either. And I'm thinking about I have two kids who have just reached driving age, and it was the first time either one of them had to have a wallet because they have a driver's license. And so this idea of like keeping track of this wallet has been kind of a source of stress, but they sure as heck know where their phone is. So if
Oh,
they
yeah.
had a digital driver's license, that would be one less thing we would have to worry about for all of that. So that's
That's so
cool.
funny. I didn't think about that, not having a wallet. Oh,
Yeah, that's true. My kids all have had wallets, so that's kind of funny to me that your kids have not.
Nope.
But I was thinking about our certain friend who will remain nameless, who tends to lose every sort of card ever issued to her, whether it's a driver's license or a credit card. She
Yeah.
knows who she is.
You know
So
who
she
we're
needs
talking
this
about.
digital license.
You're getting called out right now. They're putting you on blast. I love it.
Oh my goodness. That's so funny. And when you're listening to you talk about the last like literal, 6 years of our lives and just what a crucible it has been for everything from COVID to like the fake electors to like all of those things. And so your experience kind of coming out of that kind of those intense times can be so valuable when it comes to sort of, statewide position like this.
Yeah, you have a lot of experience in different realms of government that I think would lend itself to almost anything. Like
Yeah, no
you sound
doubt.
like you could do anything in government.
Yeah, being in the governor's office, especially at the executive office of the governor, I describe it as being the neck of government because you were able to see, the governor's agenda get set and then executed, and you see all the departments come together in order to get that done, right? All the while doing their, faithfully executing the duties of each specific office every day. And I think a lot of times there's bureaucracy in places, but with the will and with a little bit of motivation and support, we can get things done. Like for example, like the campaign finance database really needs to get fixed. And having been in government, I know that it's difficult sometimes to get those IT projects done, but that's something that's necessary. It's a public facing, reporting system that so many people rely on through their work, but also so many people, members of the public, want insight on money and politics. And it's a way to make sure that our government is accessible and transparent. And I want to make sure that we deliver on fixing that as well.
Yeah, that's so important. That's so important.
And I think there's a lot of people that don't understand about that campaign finance database that you can look up to see who donates to a candidate or who donates to a PAC. And different, that different things have different reporting requirements. But we have friends that were like, okay, we got this mailer and it says it's this PAC. Let's find out where it came from, kind of a thing. And not everybody realizes they can do that.
Yeah, they can. And like our campaign, we launched on 12/8, and by 12/31, we had raised over $300,000. We didn't take one dime of corporate PAC money, no utility money, and we signed the LCV pledge. So we're super proud of that. And and I think it's it's a testament to who do we want to answer to, right, in this campaign. And I want to answer to the people of the state of Michigan. I want to serve the people of the state of Michigan versus corporations. And I think the way to get money out of politics is to start taking those type of promises very seriously and executing and show the people that you mean business.
That's great. I for one appreciate that. I would love to see more of it.
Yeah.
Okay, but now to the important question. I need to know, what position did you play when you played competitive ice hockey?
Yeah, so I have a funny story. I was obsessed with the Red Wings as a kid. I used to watch them, and I remember, I think it was 97, and I don't think I understood that it was the best of seven. And I remember I think we might have lost like game five, and I started crying, and my dad was like, "What's wrong, baby? Why are you crying?" I'm like, "We lost." He's like, "We got two more games," and we ended up winning the Stanley Cup. And I had told him at that time that I wanted to marry Steve Yzerman, and he's like, "Steve Yzerman's already married. You have to look elsewhere." It was so funny. But I grew up, like, my mom actually like wanted me to play, wanted me to be a figure skater. No shade on figure skating. It is a beautiful sport. But my brother was playing hockey, and I told her I needed more action. And so I played left wing for a long time. I also played center, and I had a green helmet. It was a hand-me-down from my brother, and I was like a little terror on the ice.
Nice.
And it's funny because I remember when I was first playing, there was this kid named Chris Anderson, and he was so mean to me, and he didn't like have any respect for me. And then I was the only girl on the team, and I remember like getting in a fight with him, like having his back in the corner one day. And after that, Chris and I were best of friends. And I think sports are important. I feel like you can tell who played team sports and who did it in adulthood.
Uh-huh.
It definitely teaches you, how to be a leader, when to fall back, when to listen, and really being part of something bigger than yourself. And I think politics is a good metaphor for that, right? Like,
Mhm.
yes, I'm running Suzanna Shkreli, but I'm doing this for the people of the state of Michigan, and I think I'm the best candidate to represent what we value, and what we want to make sure stays in our lives, right? We're at a
Mhm.
time where we have to protect our way of life. We have election denialists on the other side of the ticket here, and we really can't afford to nominate somebody at the convention who doesn't want to be in this job, who's using it as a
Mm.
stepping stone, who doesn't show up. Like, we need somebody who really means what they say, and says what they mean, and wants to be in this role.
Yeah. I agree. This is going to be an extremely important position in Michigan going forward. And also, you very likely played against some of my nieces, or my one niece and a couple of my nephews, because they played out of St. Clair.
Mhm.
And they're about your age. I think like my niece is like maybe 4 years older, and then there's two more boys. So I
I
wouldn't be
love it.
surprised if you played against them at some point.
I love it. I love it. I'm gonna have to go through the archives and see.
Amazing. Well, another piece that you've shared from your background is that your parents fled the former Yugoslavia to escape authoritarianism. I'm wondering about how that experience and your childhood affect how you view this current era that we're living in, and what lessons you might take from that when you are elected to statewide office.
Thank you so much for this question. So a couple things come to mind. I grew up. My parents are the hardest working people I've ever met. My dad is 70 years old. He has a dual kidney transplant, and he still goes to the family restaurant. It is Working hard is so ingrained in him, and it's how him and my mom raised us. And I grew up being a waitress in my family's restaurant, bussing tables, cleaning the stock room, and then, you know, becoming a professional, and like standing in court and saying, "I'm Suzanna Shkreli on behalf of the people." That's something that really just filled me, and to this day fills me with such immense pride. Like, I often say, like, I don't think my ancestors could have ever imagined, like,
Mm.
that their granddaughter, or great granddaughter would be representing the American public, in court. So it's something that I think about all the time, and so I just have a real reverence for this state and for this country. No matter what is going on in this world, America to me is still the greatest country to ever do it. And I'm so proud to be a Michigander and to be an American. And I think it's on people like us, right? To stand up for what we believe in, and to fight for our way of life, because that's what I feel like is happening right now. And it is unfortunate and devastating that some of the same things that my parents fled from are, taking root right here at home. And so taking an oath of office to uphold the Constitution is something that means something to me, and I know it means something to most Americans in this country. I know we see some stuff happening where people are, unfortunately, not upholding their constitutional obligation, and
Yeah.
it's hard to see. But I think that this is a moment in time for all of us to come together to say, look, this is our country, this is our way of life, and we have to fight for what our values are. And that's what I'm doing in this run, is making sure that we are, standing up for our Constitution, our voice, our vote, making sure that this office doesn't end up in the hands of an election denialist who, is spreading conspiracy theories online. And I think a moment in time for me in my experience in state government was seeing, the meeting of the electors play out, and the fact that there needed to be such strong police presence at the Capitol. I mean, that's, we live in peace in America. We are, so much of what we do, from the election standpoint, especially too, right, is unceremonious, right? We canvass the elections, we certify them, and we're on our way. But this was a moment in time where something in the process was attacked and used, to rally a base to suggest that these elections, were not proper, which is the furthest thing from the truth. We know that they're secure. We have one of the most decentralized voting systems in the country, and they are inherently secure. And I'm talking to clerks across the state about, what their needs are and what resources they rely on, and they're the first to tell you just how secure our elections are. And so, to know that my parents fled from Yugoslavia, where, certain things happened to them, didn't have opportunity, had to speak a language that wasn't their own, you start to see a little bit of that here. And, it's just it's not okay. And I really do think it's high time for all Americans of goodwill, I don't care what side of the spectrum you are on, to stand up and say enough is enough. Our elections are secure. Don't believe this nonsense that you're seeing people spew on social media. Like, people want to talk about the voter rolls and inactive registrations versus active registrations. And there's so much in there that if you just really just scratch the surface, that
Yeah.
it's not true. It just takes a little bit of research to understand that what they're saying is not true, but it's being used to radicalize people and to undermine our institutions. And to me, there's nothing more American than that. Suggesting that their elections have been stolen, and there's no proof. There's no proof of it.
Absolutely no proof. And whenever I think about just this argument that they are not secure, my memory goes back to a recount that I had here in Midland County when I ran for county commission. I lost by 7 votes, so I asked for a recount. After the recount, I lost by 9 votes, so I'm not sure that was a good decision. But the process of that recount was so secure. I mean, literally these ballots were rolled in with, in black boxes that were like zipped, like locked and tied together, and had to be witnessed to be opened. I mean, anyone in that space, just the like reverence of around those ballots, just as a symbol of just how secure this whole process is, should know that it is. Like, it's absolutely secure, for sure.
Absolutely.
And it makes me so frustrated that the federal government seized the ballots in Georgia and Fulton County. There were 2 audits, there were investigations, there, like it was all taken care of above board, and they're just trying to cast aspersions on something that happened 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It's just, it's infuriating.
It is. We know that, it is also frustrating too. It's like Donald Trump will say, every election he doesn't win is rigged, and all the ones he wins are perfectly fine. Like, I just, the complete hypocrisy is ridiculous to me. And the fact that, people just kind of look the other way when he says stuff like that. But, this is just another power grab. I mean, even with the voter rolls here, I mean, something that happened after Alex Peretti was killed. There was a letter that Pam Bondi sent to the mayor and to the governor, and part of what they were seeking to do is negotiate their presence in Minnesota.
Right.
And yeah, one of the conditions was hand over the voter rolls and we'll consider leaving. And it's like, look, they're just trying to get information, and it's not just Democratic secretaries of state that are telling them no. There are secretary of states on the other side of the aisle that are also telling the president and the DOJ, no, you don't get these voter rolls because there's PII involved, and we have to protect our information. I mean, we know that they want them, and we can imagine what they want to do with them. But as Secretary of State, I would work my tail off with the Attorney General's office to ensure that we are filing whatever legal motion we need to, whatever injunction we can to stop them from trying to get, this information. They're not entitled to it. They don't get it just because they ask.
Which is why it's so important to have really amazing people in those jobs. I mean, it's always been important. It's always been an important job in our country and our state. But oh my gosh, right now, having people like you in those positions can help us all sleep at night when those kind of ridiculous demands and basically extortion come from our federal government. So
that's right. Thank you. I appreciate that. I tell people all the time, I'm used to taking on bullies. I've taken on bullies my entire career, especially in the courtroom. And I won't back down to Donald Trump, JD Vance, or anybody.
Well, thank you. So the main purpose of our podcast, as I think we told you, is that we help red communities build blue power. Running for Secretary of State is a little bit different than your average election where you go out there and get the voters interested. Can you tell us a little bit how our Secretary of State candidates are elected or nominated to their Democratic position? And also, what have you learned from traveling the state and visiting with Dems all over about how to build that blue power in places where it has not traditionally been?
Absolutely. So first of all, there's a number of races that are elected at the convention, and the convention is basically just a meeting of Democrats. It's a fancy word for meeting of Democrats, and the Republicans do it a little bit differently than we do. I think the Republicans have to have some sort of status within the party as a precinct delegate, but for us, for the Democrats, all you have to do is register with the party. And so if you register by March 20th, that's the deadline. It's 30 days before the convention. So the convention is taking place at Huntington Place in Detroit on April 19th. So 30 days before that is March 20th. Register with the party. There is a VIP option where you can pay maybe $5, $10 to expedite your credential pickup the day of the convention. But there's also there's a free option too that folks should know about, where you can register with the party for free, and then you can come vote that day. And then you would be voting for me. You would be voting for the Attorney General candidate, the State Board of Education, the U of M Board of Regents, and the Wayne State Board of Governors, I believe, as well. So it's a really fun time. It's definitely memorable. The congressional districts get together when there's speeches, the caucuses get together, there's speeches, and then we go to a vote. And so, we're letting people know we'd love to have you on our team. You can visit vote.suzannashkreli.com or suzannashkreli.com to sign up to get involved in the campaign and to commit to vote for us. We're hosting meet and greets all over the state with Democrats, and our campaign wants to make it easier for people to get there too. We know that it's not easy to get to Detroit and to stay and to park. And so we're going to have the resources to bus people in, to, provide food vouchers, gas cards, things like that in order to ease those burdens. So we're excited about that. And look, too, I also think, just to your point, I went up to the Rural Caucus fundraiser a couple days ago, and it's important that we challenge every seat. We need to have, Democrats challenge in every seat, even if it's an R+20, because we know that areas change, and we know that sometimes when representatives aren't challenged or aren't being held accountable, they do what they want instead of answering to their constituents. And I think the more we challenge people, the more we can see that areas can change. And that we can win seats, as we challenge them. I think we just saw in Texas, I think it was somebody flipped a congressional district, and it was R+17, right? So in a normal world, we would be like, wait, that's
Yeah.
going to be a hill that's too hard to climb. But we have to challenge them. And
Mm-hmm.
to that point, I ran in Michigan's 8th congressional district in 2016. I had replaced Melissa Gilbert, who's a candidate. We went red to blue. I was endorsed by Obama. I raised $800,000 nearly between when I launched in July to when the general was. And although we didn't win, it was a Trump year. I really laid the groundwork for for Alyssa Slotkin to come over and flip that seat the next year.
Mm-hmm.
We showed that it could be done,
Mm-hmm.
and she went in and she did it. And that's an example of how we can change areas race by race, year by year, and it also shows that we want to hold our electeds accountable, and it's very, very important. And also too, I understand in this race too, running as Secretary of State, I am meeting with people across Michigan. I was in Mendon, Michigan, and they told me that their nearest Secretary of State office was 17 miles away in Sturgis. So that's, that's half a day. It's a half a morning, half, an afternoon. We as candidates need to understand as well what is needed in different parts of the state don't necessarily reflect maybe what's needed where I live, right? And it's important to get out there and make sure that we're representing everybody, and that we're doing it as well as we can. And so one of the things after my conversation with them is how can we bring services to these areas? And I'd like to expand on mobility units that are present in urban areas and rural areas to make sure that people are able to get the services that they need. And so, look, we need voters from all across the state to come to this convention. We'll need rural voters. Our campaign is happy to work with them to get them down, and I'm looking forward to the grassroots coalition that we're building, and we're looking forward to April.
Wow. Well, thanks for all that. I think that you touched on a couple of things that we've talked about as far as building blue power. One of them is just really understanding the dynamics of the area that you're talking with and talking to. Like if you're in a rural area, understanding those dynamics and understanding like people in general have very similar kind of things that they worry about when they put their heads on their pillow, but each local area has its own nuances, and really understanding what those nuances are specific to your area can help you do that.
That's
And the
right.
other thing I loved you talking about when you talked about Alyssa Slotkin and kind of the reins that she took from your efforts. I mean, this work is a long game. This work is not over and done in one election cycle in so many ways. And so contesting every race, giving voters a choice on the ballot, that's what you can do today. Then the next time around, you can go a little bit further and a little bit further until you're in a position to really take some real substantial power in the area. And so I appreciate that perspective that you bring to that too.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I want to offer another anecdote too, just real quick, because, it's funny. I think oftentimes in politics, you probably know people on your side of things, but also great people on the other side of things, right? And a lot of this, I feel like, is dispelling whatever idea of that you have of a person. Like I can tell you, like when I was running in 2016, I would have people tell me like, you're a Democrat, but I might vote for you, And it's like, okay, well, thanks. I was in Howell, Michigan or something, and they were like, I like you you're good for Democrat. Like they would say something like that, which makes me laugh, it makes me laugh a little bit. But I think it's really dispelling, this idea that all of us just think one certain way, or, that there's so much that, there's so much that's happening in the world. There's so much that's happening in social media. But like when you really start talking to people and you get to see that their lives are so similar to yours, that there's so much more that we have in common than sets us apart. And I think it's especially in races like the Secretary of State's office, I want to make sure that people have good service and, that they're able to get their driver's license and their registration, things like that. And that voting, is secure and that everything continues. One of the things that I I thought was interesting in like the first weekend of the campaign is I had gone up to Harrison, Michigan, and I had heard from a man who was an attorney who had left his job as an attorney and he like retired on his family farm, and he was talking about early voting, and he's like, look, it's hard. we have one person come and vote every day for the 9
Mm.
days, and it costs us
Mm-hmm.
$1,000 a day. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I got to get you. What I want to do then is help you get more resources. He's like, no, we don't want more resources. We don't want early voting. And I was like, well, sir, it's part of the Constitution now, But
Yeah.
I hear what
Yeah.
you're saying, right? Like you were
Mhm.
struggling because when the ballot proposal is written, maybe we needed more feedback from rural areas. Now
Mhm.
there's so much burden placed on them, and actually effectuating what what the Constitution now says, which is 9 days of early voting. And I said to him, well, we have to find a path forward, right? It's getting things done. It's taking feedback, forging a path forward. Is it cost sharing with multiple municipalities, townships, and villages? Like, what is it that we need to
Yeah.
do in order to make sure that this isn't too burdensome for you? And that's something that I know I'm good at, is that I am an effective leader that listens and takes feedback, is collaborative. And I can promise that as Secretary of State that I would talk to clerks across the state. I'm talking to them now, as many as I can get to see what's working. Because, we've expanded our voting rights in such an amazing way. I mean, we really have made the ballot box more accessible and easier for folks, and it's a wonderful thing. But I also don't want our clerks to be left in the dark, or don't want our clerks to be
Yeah.
left kind of holding the bag and trying to figure things out by themselves. And the Secretary of State's office can definitely assist in training, and being a resource for them. And that's what I want to continue to do.
That's so good. And that's just good change management and leadership, right? To be like, this is what's true. There's a constitution. It's in the Constitution. Like, that's not changing. But what can we do together to like close the gap, get to the resources? And that, that's the way you bring people along in a change process, not just this is what it is and just figure out how to fall in line. So I love that perspective you're bringing to it.
Thank you.
Okay, so our last question is always a fun question. It's kind of like you might think of it as an icebreaker or a get to know us a little bit differently question.
Sure.
So if you're game, here it is.
I'm game. Let's go.
All right. Okay, so so one of the things Jennifer and I talk about a lot with and among our folks here in our area is how important it is to build a community, right? The phrase we say a lot is uh, despair grows in loneliness.
Mhm.
Despair thrives in loneliness, but
Mm.
courage thrives in community.
Mhm.
So I wonder if we could each think about one friend of ours, maybe in this work, who that might be, and give them some props, give them some love, and just say a couple of things about what you appreciate and admire about that friend who is part of this work with you. So name one friend, and
Sure.
what do you admire about them?
Okay, so
Go ahead. Yeah.
okay. Well, I don't want to jump the gun. I don't know if you guys wanted to go first, but
No,
I have.
whoever could go first
I
can go
didn't
first.
know this
Jennifer,
question was coming, and like, there's
no.
a million friends we have. I'm like,
I
who do
know,
I
right?
pick?
We have to pick one now. Yeah, pick one. And I don't know, Suzanne, if you're ready to go for it.
Yeah, sure. I will call out my friend Gita Dagger, who I used to work with at the governor's office, who's really dedicated her career to making sure that there's diversity and representation in all the roles that she's had. She was the director of appointments for Governor Whitmer, and so she really took that charge to heart, making sure that the people that the recommendations that she would make to the governor really reflected what Michigan looked like, and so because of that, I mean, there was the most diverse cabinet and diverse administration in Michigan's history. But I also I know that she oversees a national organization called New American Leaders, and that was a tough time, right? I mean, a lot of philanthropies, a lot of organizations that rely on federal funds have been, those funds have been siphoned. There've been a stop to it, and she's so dedicated to this experiment in American democracy and making sure that representation exists. And I think the work matters every single day. I understand that there are good days and bad days, but the work matters, and I just want to tell her to keep going and to keep doing that work because it's so important. And I was actually at an event the other day, and like there are some good days and bad days on the campaign, but I had this young girl come up to me and said, well, her mother came up to me, says, my daughter wants to meet you. She wants to meet you, and she's also Albanian American, and it just made my night that she maybe saw some of herself in me. And I said, you know what, this is always worth it. And days like that today, when you have a young person come up to you to say, you're somebody I looked up to, you're somebody that I would like to follow in your footsteps. Like, that's the work that Geeta's doing every single day, encouraging new Americans to get involved in the political process. And so I want to say thank you, Geeta. Keep it up. You're helping inspire young Susies and Geetas all across the state of Michigan and the country.
She sounds amazing. Go Geeta.
She is.
So I'll share. I'll go next to give you a little bit more time to think, Jennifer. So I'm going to shout out our friend Elena Smith. Elena is a county commissioner here in Midland. She is the only Democrat on the commission. Definitely a Democrat, very progressive, the smartest person I know, but also so open to other ideas and other people and what they care about. Elena has, her heart is all about community service. And to the extent where even in these very divisive and polarized times, she's the only Democrat on the county commission, and I would bet they all would say that they respect her very much. And that's saying a lot these days. And so, Elena, I love you, and thank you for being who you are.
Okay, this is so hard. Because there's so many people. I'm literally the whole time like, we'll talk about this person. No, let's do this person. So I could just pick a million different people, but I'm going to go with Kelly Taylor.
Oh, love
Kelly. She worked in journalism for years and could not openly support Democrats, but did did what she could in a very red area on a newspaper, trying to give us fair coverage and whatnot. And then the minute she quit working as a journalist, went and joined the Democratic Party. And she has done so much, not only here in Midland, but like out in the Thumb. I don't know how much you know about the Thumb. Not a lot of Democrats out there. I lived out there for a while myself. So that's a battleground. But when she came back to Midland, she's just been volunteering up and down. She applied for a job with the Michigan Democratic Party, and I didn't know this till later. They didn't give it to her. I was so mad. She would have been a perfect person to be the organizer in our area. But even though she didn't get hired for that job, she still volunteered to canvass every single day, just like over and over and over again, and still is doing that work. In fact, she's this person that, like, I'll be like, Kelly, I have to ask for volunteers for this, but not you, because you're already doing too much.
That's amazing.
So just calm down and take a beat. But yeah, Kelly Taylor, she'll volunteer for anything. And
good to know. Amazing. Good to know, Jennifer. I'm about to call Kelly.
Call Kelly if you can get her on your side.
Kelly. I'm hiring Kelly as an organizer for the Suzanna Shkreli campaign.
She's amazing. I mean, talk about a person who puts their body where their values are. Like, oh my gosh, we're very lucky to have Kelly and Elena here in our area. So, well, that was fun shouting out some friends. So, Suzanna, thank you so much for joining the pod. Where can people find out more information about your campaign?
Well, thank you for having me. This is a lot of fun. You all can visit SuzannaShkreli.com, and we have a really cool launch video. I don't know if you guys saw it. I'd be happy to send it to you. But
I did actually.
It definitely incorporates my my hockey upbringing and my
I loved
my family.
It.
Yeah, so we have that'll pop up on on the website. But then there's ways to contribute, ways to sign up, and also ways to commit to vote for me at the convention. So really look forward to getting to know your listeners more. Please feel free to reach out. Kelly, I'm calling you. I'm gonna have to get your number from Jennifer after we wrap up.
Thank you so much. And thanks so much again for your time. I know, especially as we're leading into the convention, which is right around the corner, your time is so precious right now. And that you're able to spend some of it with us is really special. So thank you so much. And to all of our listeners out there, thank you for tuning in again to the Beyond the Resistance pod, where we share hard-won insights to build blue power and red communities and start winning. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
You can listen to the Beyond Resistance podcast on all major platforms. Leave us a review to boost this episode and help us reach more blue dots and red Cs. Follow us on social media and like, share, comment to increase our reach. Subscribe to our Patreon and gain access to our private Discord channel and make monetary donations of support through Venmo. You can find all of this and more at beyondresistancepod.com. Beyond Resistance is a Beyond Resistance LLC production. Producers Jennifer Austin and Sarah Schultz. Editing Jennifer Austin. Theme song We Run the Room by Shadow Kitten.